The views and opinions expressed by guests on this show are those of our guests, not necessarily ours. We are interested in presenting different viewpoints and strive to be neutral parties. We leave it up to you to make your own judgments. Welcome to Vision Chat, a podcast about spiritual topics, with your hosts, Virginia and Stina. Hello and welcome to another episode of Vision Chat. Today we have Jonny Torgersen, who is a repeat guest, so we're very grateful for Jonny's time and agreeing to join us again. Jonny is a highly regarded spiritual medium, life coach, and certified professional hypnotist, known for his charismatic yet grounded approach to personal transformation. With a focus on spiritual awakening, emotional healing, and unlocking inner potential, Jonny empowers clients to connect deeply with spirit, overcome limiting beliefs, and create meaningful change in their lives. Through his unique blend of spiritual mediumship, coaching, and hypnosis, Jonny creates profound shifts for his clients, helping them overcome fears, release barriers, and embrace new opportunities. His workshops, development circles, and private sessions provide a safe and nurturing space for growth, where participants can discern between their inner voice and spiritual messages, fostering confidence and clarity. Jonny, thank you so much for joining us again. How have you been?
Good. Thanks for having me back on the show. I really appreciate that. It's I think it was about a year and a half ago since last time I was on, and lots have changed since then, or improved, I should say. So yeah, I'm good. What about you guys?
Awesome. Well, Stina, do you want to talk about what, for people watching us on YouTube, why we're both wearing red?
Well, I guess we just have something subconscious that we just know what color each other have on the day we are doing the podcast. Or sometimes the hair too, like it can be put up at the same time, or just like we're in tune somehow.
Does that happen a lot for you too?
It does.
That's funny.
It's weird, but I love it.
That's great. Well, you look great.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you.
So that's what we've been up to, Jonny. How about you?
Speaking of colors,
that's how we're doing.
That's great. Well, since last time, lots of personal changes, and it's always so funny, like how my business is a reflection of all the personal changes that I've gone through, and which is a good thing because I think it makes me a better coach, makes me a better hypnotist, and also medium. So I think we briefly touched on that last time I was on your on the podcast, that I kind of secretly was a closet medium, which I've been since I was like 18. And I always treated it as a hobby and something that I was just naturally interested in from an early age. And not that I ever had like any profound experiences as a kid, I would say. I mean, I was always a very sensitive child. I always picked up on people's energies a lot. And I could always feel things, but I never really understood what it was. I didn't have words to describe or explain what it was. And then back in Norway, when I was around 17, 18, they had a TV show called Åndenes Makt. I don't know if you were familiar with that, Stina, but in English, it would be something like The Power of the Spirits. And so they had basically mediums come on and do readings for people. And there was something about that that just really fascinated me. And it seemed like the most obvious thing in the world. Like, yeah, of course, like when the physical body dies, the soul goes on to a different realm or vibration, or even back to where we actually came from, because the way I see it, Earth is just like an illusion. It's where we come temporarily, but our true place of belonging and home is in the spirit world. And so I just saw these mediums doing readings for people and just talking out of thin air, but it somehow just connected things for me. And it's like, oh, they're actually able to describe the things that they're picking up on outside of their body, or even within their eyes, minds, or and so I looked up mediumship. I came across this ad in a paper, I think it was. This is back when we actually had newspapers. This is 20 years ago. This British medium came to Oslo, and she did a demonstration. And so I was like, told two of my friends, and we decided to go together. And I was very skeptical, but And it was a very long answer to the question you asked, what I've been up to since last time, but it's going somewhere. And so, yeah, I did the demonstration. She brought through my grandmother, and she immediately said, like, I know you didn't want me to come to you, Jonny, but I feel called. And I was like hiding in the back of the room. And of course, somehow spirit found me all the way in the back there. And so since then, I was like, okay, I guess this is real. Like, this is pretty fascinating. And she happened to have a workshop around the same time. So I signed up for that. And yeah, so since then, that was like my development of my mediumship skills, where I had like a conscious concept to like, how can you actually improve this ability? Because a lot of people think it's a gift, and to some degree it is a gift. Like, some people are naturally born with this ability. I don't think I was like naturally born to do it per se. I needed a lot of development. So now I feel like I'm in a place where I'm ready to talk about it. I'm ready to tell people what I do. I offer services. It's on my website. And yeah, it just feels really good. So that's kind of what I've been up to since last time. But that's where it all started, when I was like a lot younger. And yeah, it just had to unfold slowly over time for me.
I recently saw somewhere, maybe on Instagram, that you did what would you call them, like readings or mediumship readings with James Van Praagh. Do you want to tell folks about that?
Sure. So yeah, we did a workshop, and I've known James for, gosh, since 2016, 2017, I think. So what I didn't tell you before is that, I developed a lot, back in Norway. I had my own development center with a friend of mine. We had circles and workshops. And then one day I was like, I don't feel like I should do this anymore. I felt like I just needed to get some life experience, because I was 18 and 19 and 20 at the time. I didn't feel like I had a lot of life experience. And so, long story short, I moved to America, lived in an ashram, of all things, a spiritual community where people meditate together. So I didn't really focus so much on the mediumship part of my life, but more so like the meditation part and personal development. And so it wasn't until I started getting interested in mediumship again around 2016, 2017. And at that time, I had moved to San Diego, and I came across this guy named James Van Praagh. Never heard of him before, but realized quickly on, like, oh, he's a big deal in the mediumship world. And, he had his own TV show back in the day, and he's a phenomenal teacher. So I just felt called to go to his workshop, because it was just down the street from where I was living. And so, yeah, I just started hanging around and attending his workshops with him and another medium, Lynn Probert. She's a phenomenal medium as well. And then a couple of years ago, we had a lot of mutual friends, because we live in the same area and we're in the same kind of area, and we know a lot of the same people. And we just happened to chat on the phone one day, and I started working for his company, because he has an online school. And so I started helping him with some marketing, because that's my background. Get to attend all his mediumship workshops as part of my job. So that was great. And so, he's seen great potential in me over the years and really encouraged me to like step out there. So a friend of mine, Michaela Whaley, she's also a phenomenal medium. We decided, why don't we just put our own workshop on and, see who wants to come. And then James heard about it, and he was like, well, I want to help. I want to join. So we said, sure, why not? You just feel free to put your name on the flyer, and, and so we did. And it was a great workshop. We had about, well, it was a small room, so we only had capacity of like 20, 23 people. But yeah, it was really well. So like, early on when I did start my development, we had a lot of workshops back in Norway, and we did circles where people can come and practice their own skills and develop their own skills, because it's really helpful to be in that kind of space with like-minded people and have some people who have a little bit more experience than you to help you kind of craft the ability to do mediumship readings. And so, it's something I'm going to be doing more of in the next few months and years, and hopefully for the rest of my life, because I feel really called to do this. So yeah, it was a great honor to have James be part of the workshop, and more things will be coming down the road, that's for sure.
Do you feel there is a big shift between when you were practicing and kind of had a teacher, and now you're on the other side teaching other people and having these workshops?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I'll always be a student myself. I'll always be a developing medium, regardless how many years of experience I've had, because my mediumship will always change, and it should always change. But yes, from going from like a total beginner, not really knowing what I was doing, as a teenager, to now like helping other people, it's really fun because, well, and it also goes a lot of hand in hand with personal development, feelings of self-worth. So like my background as a hypnotist and personal development coach also really comes in handy with the mediumship, because a lot of people they don't believe in themselves. And so they think, oh, until I get a good reading or a good connection or a good piece of evidence, only then will I believe in my ability as a medium. Where in fact, it's kind of the opposite way around. You have to believe in yourself first, then you start to do the reading, and you're going to see like such a profound change in how you deliver your mediumship readings. I have very high standards for my mediumship, and I think that kept me underground for a while because I wasn't ready to put it out there, because I'm a perfectionist. I wanted things to be stellar before I really put myself out there. But the second I started shifting the conversation on mine to where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to show up and do the best I can, believe in myself. And then, if I have a great reading, great. But not every reading is going to be great. And I always tell that to my clients. It's almost like every time it's an experiment. I never know who's going to come through. I never know what's going to happen. And so sometimes it flows beautifully. Other times I'm like, let's reschedule because I'm human, and I don't want to ever pretend that I totally got it. So I guess it keeps me humble, which is helpful. But it's fun to like help other people on the same journey, like help them believe in themselves and see what's actually possible for themselves. It's a lot of fun. So yes, I'm going to be doing a lot more workshops and development circles coming up. So that's really exciting.
And I love that you're saying like it's okay if I, reschedule. Like it's no big deal. It's not like, okay, I have to get it perfectly now. Ideally, yes. But like you said, that's not within your control. So
right. And there are a lot of factors that come into place, to have a successful reading someone. Sometimes it's the recipient, sometimes it's the spirit communicator. But just because the spirit is on the other side doesn't mean they're a great communicator, especially if it's their first time going to a medium. So it's such an interesting way. And I guess going back to what you said about like helping people do these things, it's helpful to explain to them the different nuances and what can affect a good mediumship reading, because it's not just me, it's the sitter, it's the communicator. And so just having that awareness takes off the pressure a little bit. But obviously I'm a professional medium, so I strive to do a good job, and I prepare myself before my readings, right? That's a crucial part of it. But again, we're all human, and I will never try to force anything to happen, because that's when I think I would become a charlatan, and just, I don't want to come across as someone who's forcing it just to prove a point. I'm more comfortable being wrong than being right in some cases, for sure.
And that is wonderful. I think there might be a lot of people that wants to do something, no matter what it is or what they're working with, and they're kind of just pushing through, no matter if it's supposed to be or not.
Right.
And to be honest with yourself, like, okay, this is not the day. And that is so beautiful, because I think it's a part of the ego as well, to say, this is not the day, and accepting it instead of forcing it in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And also still move forward, because a lot of times when I felt like I was meeting resistance in anything that I was doing, not just mediumship, but also just showing up for a work meeting or, hosting, whatever it is, right? Even if you don't get it perfectly, just still show up and do your best. And then just look back and look at it as like a learning experience. And then hopefully next time it'll be better. But I think a lot of people hold themselves unnecessarily back because of perceived failures, right? But there's no such thing as a failure. You learn to get better for the next time. And so just having that mindset really helps you not get stuck in, self-deprecating behaviors where you're just like beating on yourself, because it does no good.
You mentioned something interesting from the perspective of like, let's say someone who is wanting to come to a mediumship reading and they maybe never had one before. What do you have like a different explanation for people as to like when you are going to provide a reading for them? Like, how do you prepare the sitter? Because that does play a part in how you provide the reading.
Absolutely. I don't know. Do you have a lot of mediumship experiences yourself? Have you seen a medium before?
I'm a developing medium, not a very, very good one, but so.
Or you
I
don't need
took
to say
some
the last
classes.
part. Just say you're a developing medium and leave it at that.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So every time before I do a reading for someone, I always like to educate them on how the process works and how I communicate. And all mediums are different, so it's important to find your own style and your own way, right? I also like to describe that sometimes I'll see spirits, sometimes I'll hear them, sometimes I feel them, sometimes I just know things. And so that goes in all the different clears. Now, just because spirit is on the other side, like I talked to you about earlier, doesn't mean that they're great communicators. Because some spirits will only communicate through like clairvoyance, where you see things with your mind's eyes. Some spirits are really good at actually, I can hear them and in my mind's ear, right? And so this is what I told people, the students at the workshop that I was doing, that I was a big skeptic for a lot of years, and I still am to some degree, because it's when we communicate with spirit in a conscious way like that, the information we get is just glimpses of information. So I like to explain how one of my teachers, Lynn Probert, told me, it's like you get a small piece of a puzzle and it just like drops into your consciousness, just like, and maybe you'll see an image of something, or you get a smell of something, and then I tell the client what I'm receiving, but together it's like we have to put all the puzzle pieces together, and I just don't know what the finished picture is going to look like. So I asked them to keep an open mind. The more in their head they are, the tougher the reading is going to go, because it's all an energy exchange. So it's a three-way communication style, where like spirit communicates through me, I to the client, and vice versa. So it goes back and forth, it flows. So I always like to allow the client to just be at ease first, make them feel safe, but for some people who come to see a medium, a lot of times they experience severe grief. And so you kind of have to like allow them to have the space to be who they are and just have their feelings and just help them process that. And that's ultimately when you do what you do in a mediumship reading. You are a healer for that person, because they need to hear something from their loved one in spirit. So yeah, that's important.
Have you ever had the experience of how do you deal with the expectations sometimes? Because like you mentioned, the thing with mediumship that's a little bit different from like a psychic reading is that people are, it's like a little bit more sensitive because of the grief, right?
Yeah.
And so, they come maybe wanting to hear from a particular person. And so, how do you handle that piece if that person in spirit doesn't show up?
Mm-hmm. Again, so I like to educate the client, right? And so, yes, a lot of times they come because they want to hear from one particular person. And I would say 9 out of 10 times that person will come through. However, they may not come through first. And so, again, that's where I'm like, I always tell the client, have an open mind, because I don't control who's going to come through. I just allow it. And, their intelligence is much greater than mine and the client's. And so I trust them more than I trust the client, because ultimately their need will be met, because spirit knows what's up and they know what that client needs to hear. But it's a good point to also say that not every spirit is going to have a good vibrational match with the medium. So sometimes I'll have a client say, oh my gosh, this is the first time my mom came through. And I've gone to other mediums, but for some reason, she's never come through until now. And so it doesn't mean that I'm better than other mediums, but maybe I have a closer vibrational match with that person. It's almost like when you go to a party or a social event, and sometimes you're just naturally gravitating towards certain people in the room, and other people you're like, I don't really know about this person. And so like you have to think about that too. Like it's like chemistry between me and the spirit as well. But so I always like to say, just because you didn't hear from that person today doesn't mean that they're not around you, doesn't mean they didn't try. But I will say like 9 out of 10 times that person will come through, but usually not always first. I also say this, that, a spirit on the other side will also, my experience is that they will observe a spirit communication from other people too. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes they have to watch how the process works in order for them to understand it better. So like a lot of times, they'll come with another loved one at the same time. So like maybe a grandfather will come through first because that's more, they've been in spirit longer maybe, or, they've done that process themselves. And then whoever else needs to come in, kind of watch that process and then swoop in. So as a medium, it's extremely important to understand or recognize the different energies that you perceive within your own minds and your own psyche. Because a lot of mediums will fall into thinking it's the same person when there's actually two separate people coming through at the same time. And so that just takes practice, and to become, allow yourself to be very sensitive.
Have you ever experienced like that somebody shows up before the sitting or before the session?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That happens a lot. One time I was doing an online demonstration for a spiritualist church in England. I was in San Diego, and the night before, as I was going to bed, I just started seeing all these people come through. I was like, my gosh, what's going on here? Just as I was going to bed, right? And I would get a lot of information. I was like, okay, well, hold it. I'm not going to be able to remember all this, because I felt like, they're coming for the demonstration that I was doing. And so sure enough, the day of the demonstration, it was morning my time, nighttime in England, and a lot of the same people would come through. And so that happens a lot, yes, for sure. But I will say that it's so easy as a medium, especially a developing medium, that when you start to pick up on information from a spirit communicator before the actual reading, a lot of people will start to get in their head about it. The mediums will get in the head and think about the things they received, which, you can do that, but you also have to make sure that you're blending with the spirit in the moment when you're actually doing the reading. Otherwise, you just relaying information from experience you had earlier. You want to be able to have the spirit communicator blend their energy with yours and the client in real time, because that's when the reading is the most powerful. But it happens that they'll come and get my attention before reading, and then I say, okay, great, appreciate you here. Just sit tight, hold back, and come through strongly when the client is actually in front of me.
You talked also a little bit about the energies with the people on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I know this might be a little difficult question. So do you think there is, because I know a lot of mediums talk about there is love on the other side, which they are, but do you think it also something else than love?
That's a great question, and a question that we get a lot when we do this kind of work, which is great. First and foremost, I think it's important to remember that, when spirit are on the other side, they're still people, they're still their personality. And so a lot of times when people are reading, it's like, oh, I feel someone's energy, like you're actually feeling a person. So I have to remember that, because that brings the essence of their life. I honor the life they had when they were living. But yeah, so if you're asking me questions, if like, are you saying like asking if there's like evil stuff on the other side? Yeah. I have not personally ever encountered anything bad or evil. And all the teachers I've studied with over the years, again, this is my understanding today. It might change tomorrow, might change next year, which it always happens. My understanding always expands. Is that fear is of the human mind. It's created in the human psyche. But when the physical body dies, I don't believe that we bring that fear with us to the other side. So my experience is that there is only love on the other side. I do believe there are different levels of consciousness and awareness. And because, we are, when we come to Earth, I believe that we come here to learn things and grow as souls. And so some souls are more evolved than others. And so just because we physically die and go to the other side, doesn't mean that our consciousness is elevated necessarily. We're still at the same energetic level as we were when we were living here. So yeah, I do believe there's different levels and vibrations, but inherently evil, I don't necessarily believe in that. And I don't believe that spirit communication is ever dangerous. That's never been my experience. A lot of times people also get tripped up thinking that a house or a home or a physical space is haunted, that there's a lingering spirit. I don't believe in that either. I do believe that when the physical body dies, we're automatically back to where we came from. However, there are emotional imprints in the physical spaces we've been in. And to some degree, that imprint has its own consciousness, its own vibration. And that can certainly linger. And I think you can also connect with that. You can blend with that. And if it's been a very traumatic physical thing that happened, I think we can definitely get affected by that. And that can also be not so positive. It could be a little negative, actually. But so again, just having the understanding of how things work and how the soul is in its natural state kind of helps alleviate some of the fears around this kind of work, because there's a lot of fears because people don't fully understand it. I certainly don't fully understand all of it myself, but the more I do this work and the more I've connected with like-minded people, my understanding is always growing and changing, which I'm grateful for.
Jonny, so now you've been a medium for several years, right? You're highly experienced in this area. Have you gotten an understanding of where souls go or where they're coming from? Or like, do they go back to source? Is there a place that's called heaven? Does that exist? What's your take on where souls reside when they're not in bodies here on Earth?
Yeah. Well, I still think even though we're physically on this planet, the majority of our soul is still on the other side. Because a lot of times people think the soul is in the body. I think the body is inside the soul, and only it's only occupying a part of the soul to have that human experience and to be able to evolve. So, just as the three of us are still sitting here talking, kind of physically, but like on Zoom, we're still, the majority of our souls is still connected to the spirit realm or the other side or the universe or source or whatever you call it. And I don't have a good word for it. The way I think about it, it's like we're all radiating at a certain frequency, right? Like a radio channel. Like each of our own spirits has its own vibration, its own frequency, right? And usually a frequency will only be attracted to similar frequencies. And so I think that, when this body goes bye-bye and I'm buried, that I'm no longer attached to my physical body, but my soul's vibration and frequency will match similar souls on the other side in space or a different realm or whatever you want to call it. Not visually, visible to the physical eye. But yeah, it's energy. And also my understanding is that things are very similar on the other side. When I do my readings for people and I bring through someone's loved one, they always come through with so much love, and they come with so much enthusiasm, and they talk about their experience on the other side. And so for a lot of people, they still go to school on the other side. They still enjoy certain foods. They enjoy like what we think is like these physical things, because again, everything is a vibration, everything's an energy. And so it's just a different realm. This is the best way I can describe it. But yeah, and I think, well, how deeply do we want to go? We also have to think about, there's not just human beings that have this experience, so I think that we all share the same source, the same origin, if you think about the great scheme of the universe. And then certain groups of energies or souls come to different planets. Like for some reason, right now, my soul chose to come to this planet. Doesn't mean that maybe in the next lifetime, maybe my soul wants to experience a different kind of life form on a different planet. I totally believe in that. That's my understanding today. And you see that with great channelers like Daryl Anka, who channels an entity named Bashar. If you've heard of him, he comes from a totally different civilization, and it makes total sense to me. I've had meditations where I sit in my own meditation and power and connect to the other side, where I have seen some strange creatures. Physically, they look very bizarre, but their heart is very pure. So I do want to say that. One time I had a giant person come through with a giant head and big eyes and very gnarly looking mouth. And just seeing that kind of like, oh, who are you? Gosh, you didn't turn out that well. But then, so just blending with that energy, that soul, whatever you want to call it. I just like, oh, it's just they have a different understanding of how things work and a different perspective. So I really appreciated it. That was a cool experience to have. But yeah, I think there's like there's so many frequencies out there, and Yeah, it's hard to describe it. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, and we're both nodding for people that can't see us.
Right.
Stina and I are both nodding, like we're with you. You're reminding me, and Stina, I'm sorry you're sick of hearing about this because I keep bringing it up every episode that we've done. So you sound a lot like there's an author named Michael Newton, Dr.
Oh
Michael
yeah,
Newton.
sure.
Have you read his books by
I
chance?
have, yes, Journey of Souls or Life Between Lives, one of those two.
Okay. Yeah, he has A Journey of Souls, I think was his first one, and then Destiny of Souls was the second one. And I'm on the second one. So like everything you're saying is like, oh yeah, it's clicking because this is what he's talking about.
Yeah. And there's so many theories out there. And again, it's in like, from reading books like that, I take what I like and I leave the rest. Right. So, again, that's my understanding today, and it'll probably change tomorrow. But yeah, absolutely. Dolores Cannon talks a lot about this too. And yeah, it's fascinating.
You're very brave. Just to take something that you just mentioned that caught my eye is like the blending with the different looking being.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, if Stina and I encounter anything different looking, we usually don't have that kind of reaction. We're not like, oh, hey, what's up? We're like, okay.
What's your initial reaction?
Probably a fear. I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself. Stina, you can answer this. I mean, for me, it's more like a jolt. Like I'm not expecting to see it. So maybe surprise, like, oh, whoa, okay. And fear, because it's fear of something that I'm not expecting. So usually I want to protect myself. But then sometimes if I do that, sometimes it's like, oh, well, this being wasn't that bad.
Right.
Or, oh, yeah, this being maybe shouldn't be here, not with the best intentions. So, yeah, so then you take other steps. But yeah, I don't know, Stina, do you want to share your feelings?
Yeah, sure. I think some of it is it is fear, and I think it's also that if it's like a reflection of some trauma and then that energy kind of vibrates with what is coming in, I'm not sure. But I think it's fear, and especially at night when I'm going to bed, it's dark in my room. I cannot sleep without any lights on unless there's somebody next to me. But yeah, mostly fear, and then kind of use the tools to take this entity to source, kind of hooking it up and send it away. I guess sometimes it depends how, if I'm have the energy for it to look into what is this, because I know also we have our aura, or like the bubble around us, we have cords, and it can also manifest from our baggage that we have in life. Some of these entities that can form into something else, like you said, when people pass, they can leave a mark, and if it's something traumatic, it might be a little negative. So
yeah, naturally I've always been very curious, and whenever I do encounter something that's like a little different in my meditations or seeing things, I'm more intrigued than fearful, which I'm grateful for, because most people are a little fearful. I also think about my spirit guides and the spirit helpers that's around us at all times, and they are helping protect us, keeping us safe. But again, I don't think there's anything to be worried about or fearful of, because again, I don't believe that and even if you think of like aliens per se, they're still souls, just in a different, different physical form. I mean, we haven't seen them yet, but that's the theory, right? And so I don't fear it, because I believe that ultimately we come from the same source. We can't come from God. But I think that, I don't know, I'd be more worried about, yes, we have our own baggage and our own emotional trauma, and we're stuck in our own level of consciousness. And so I think we're a greater risk of attracting those physical human beings into our lives, more so than negative spirits, if that makes sense. Because I think ultimately our soul, the essence of who we are is pure. I believe that's nothing but love. But the human mind creates a lot of crazy stories in our own head, and we attract certain things. And so, again, this is why I love the work I do as a hypnotist, also because I know how the subconscious mind works. And so, whatever is unresolved within the subconscious mind is going to be reflected in the mental conversations you have about your life, because the two parts of the mind are connected, right? So the brain, that the conscious mind, is always looking to seek validation for what you believe about yourself on a subconscious level. So whatever subconscious belief you have, if that's a fearful one or a negative one, you're going to start to attract that in your physical world. So again, I always like to teach a lot of personal development when I help people do mediumship, because you have to resolve a lot of things within your own heart and your own mind before you do this work. So like the experience is like when you're blending with the spirit person on the other side, but you haven't worked on yourself yet. Sometimes that's going to mess up the reading, because now you start to project your own baggage onto the spirit. And so you have to be very conscious of that. And that's also doing them a disservice and the recipient disservice, because now your unresolved trauma is getting in the way too. So that has to be taken care of also. People have always said, and I always like to say this, that the more you work on your own soul, the better a medium you're going to become, because it goes hand in hand. Like the more you can, the more you can allow the essence of your soul and your true expression to come through you as a human being, the cleaner the mediumship readings are going to be too, because now it's just energy meeting energy. Now there's like, you're eliminating that human side from the reading, because that's what we have to do. We have to set aside the ego. We have to set aside the negative self-talk and just become pure channelers, if you will.
That's very similar to like when we're doing psychic readings for people, like it's what we would call like being in the space of neutrality. Because I know for myself, if I'm in my head about something, I'm going to have some judgments, right? It can't be helped. But if I'm meditating and I can get into a neutral place in my head and I can do a reading from there, it's way cleaner.
Absolutely, yeah.
I surprise myself. I'm like, oh, that's not what I was thinking, but this is what's coming through.
Yeah.
It's wild. And
you're not supposed to think when you do mediumship, because then you're doing it wrong, because you're in the head. Spirit communication is through the heart. Hey, a good little tip to anyone who's like in that space of developing their mediumship and questioning if it's, because that's the biggest question we all have, right? Is it my own mind coming up with this stuff, or is it actually spirit giving me this information? And a good way to understand the difference is that if you try to come up with a story in your human mind, it's most likely from your mind. Because when spirit comes through with us, it's just like you said, it's like neutral. It's not mine. I just let it flow through me, and I just give what I receive. I'm not looking for anything, because again, if I'm looking for something, I'm using the brain to get information. But again, then you're not doing mediumship, because as mediums, you just receive the information. When you do psychic work, a lot of times you will perceive the information. So when you're like picking up on things, but again, it's important not to use the brain. And I know it's super hard. It's so easy to talk about this stuff, but when you're actually doing it, it's really hard. Like, how the heck do you not use the brain? And it comes down to just like trusting the process a lot. And a big key element to become a good medium is to sit with your own energy and get to know yourself first. The more you can sit in your own power and with your own energy field and process and circulate your own energy, the more you get to know yourself. So like, that's a very important part. You need to be comfortable with who you are as a human being first before you can become a good medium. I'm not saying like don't do mediumship until you have like worked on yourself. Like, you can do it simultaneously. And a lot of times, when you do sitting in development circles, spirit will work on you, and vice versa. You'll work on yourself also. But yeah, it's just practice. And the more you know what your vibration feels like, the more you know what your soul feels like, then be better able to decipher what is your own energy versus a spirit communicator's energy. Because again, now you're down to like separating the different vibrations that you're picking up on, and that's very important too.
It sounds like a process.
It's a process and a half. It's
yeah,
not a lot of work, but it's like a lot of unlearning, right? A lot of allowing, and just allowing yourself to be in the flow of things.
I can imagine for like beginners to like go into the space, maybe they have been disconnected with their own energy and
Yeah.
themselves, that when they are starting to come back and look at themselves, that can be overwhelming, or maybe a little bit resistance to take that
Absolutely.
step and grow.
Yeah, that's a great point. So like when you start to meditate and you sit with yourself, yes, the first person you're meeting is yourself. And a lot of times that can be very uncomfortable, especially if you have like unresolved stuff that you need to work on, or that you know that you need to work on. Because most people will distract themselves away from actually doing things that they need to do. You know, a lot of times we tolerate too much from other people. We tolerate too much dysfunctional behavior from ourselves too. And when you're sitting with yourself, it's like sometimes the dysfunction is like right there in front of you, but you don't see it because it's so close to you. But like allowing yourself to just breathe through your own energy and just sit with yourself in meditation, sometimes you gain a little bit better perspective where like the pain is actually coming a little bit further away from you. You know, like you see it from a different angle, from a different perspective. And a lot of times I really believe that spirit helps us with this process when we set up the space to just sit in meditation and sit with our own power. When I say sitting in the power, like you're sitting with your own energy and building your own energy. So that's a big part of it. But also not just observe it, not just like look at it, but actually start to move the energy. Something that I learned at the ashram that I lived in Portland, Oregon, of all places, was something called a double breathing meditation, where you sit and you focus on your own heart space, your own energy, but you draw energy through with the breath through your third eye into your heart. You hold it there until you get a little uncomfortable, and then you feel the expansion in your heart. You take a little bit of air out, like breathe out like maybe 20% of the air. Take another deep breath in and put it down into your solar plexus and hold it there for a few seconds. And then feel the expansion in your solar plexus and your heart at the same time. Then you release the air, let it go down to your root chakra and up your spine and through your crown chakra, because now you're actually moving the energy. That's a big part of it too. You can't just be stuck with your own trauma. You have to process it. You have to move. You have to allow yourself to let that energy circulate. And that's what meditation is for a lot of people. It's like releasing those blocks and barriers that are standing in the way of you actually experiencing your true soul self. So yeah, that's a great point.
Do you feel like you said earlier, like you're coming from kind of focusing more on like the being a hypnotist and stepping out more being a medium.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel comfortable like nowadays, like putting yourself out there more as a medium?
Yeah, 100%, which is great. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be on this podcast. Well, I'll take that back, because, you know, in the beginning, and anytime you start something new and you feel like a little unsure about it, you know, just move along with the fear. Like the fear is always going to be there. You know, when I do readings and then get on stage and stuff, like the fear is always going to be in the back of my mind. But like, I don't let that dictate the outcome. I don't let the fear be in the driver's seat. You know, you can come along with the ride because yes, I'm human and I can't just easily discard you, but I'm going to choose to be in the driver's seat because I have, at this point in my life, I have such a strong conviction that this is real, that I feel comfortable doing this. This is my purpose and what I feel the most passionate about. And so it's very easy for me to say yes to anything that has to do with mediumship. So like you guys invited me to do another episode. Yes, easy, right? You know, being asked to do demonstrations. Yes, that's easy for me because I feel like if I don't do it, and by the time I'm 80, if I've had said no to all these things, I would be so full of regret, and I don't want to be that person. And so I just want to move along with my conviction. And, you know, if fear has to come along for the ride, you know, they can take the back seat.
I love that. And I think it's so important for everybody, no matter what age you are, like how much fear is controlling our life, or
Yeah,
like the society maybe as well.
for sure.
And to break out of that must be so liberating. And I just love that you're at the point too, where you're like, oh, fear, you can just go back. You can be here, but you're not in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to like I have such a strong conviction that what I want to do in my life has such a profound impact on me and the people around me, that I value that so much more than me saying no. Because if I were to say no, like, again, people wouldn't have the great experiences that they've had, working with me. And I'm not saying that to boast myself or anything, but it's like, what can actually happen if I say yes to what I feel called to doing? And why would I deny that? Like, spirit wants this, they want us to have a good life. They want us to feel happy and joyful and abundant also. And so the more I say yes to these things, the stronger the energy is and the support from the other side is there. So it's like this giant wave. And at this point, I just can't hold it back anymore. So yeah, but it comes down to starting to say yes to things that do make you feel a little scared, and know that fear is an illusion. People say it stands for like false, not evidence. Yeah, false evidence appearing real. And again, because I know what I know about the subconscious mind and the brain and how the two are aligned and working with each other, I know that whenever I have a fear of something, a lot of times I'll create a story around it. And because I am creating a story, I know it's not real, because if it's something that you're supposed to do, it's just like that inner knowing. And so I can just observe my mind having a conversation, because again, we're not our thoughts. We're not who we think we are. We're just observing the brain doing these things. And so, like, again, kind of creating distance from parts of ourselves helps me see everything from a different perspective. And that helps me move along a little stronger too.
Would you say that you have found your purpose?
Yes. Well, the reason I hesitate is, like, I feel like it found me somehow. I've always followed my curiosity, always follow my intuition, always follow my heart, but I've never understood where it's taking me until, years later, when I look back at the path that I've walked. I'm like, oh, now I see why I was interested in XYZ, because it led me to where I am today, which is great. So again, it's like the universe is like dangling a carrot in front of me. I don't know where we're going, but I'm just like, okay, this carrot looks delicious. Let me go for it. And, I do believe that our spirit helpers, God, the universe, has the final vision for us. But, I can't see that at this point in my life, because if I were to see where I'm going to be in 10 years from now, I would just close my laptop and say, goodbye, I'm out of here. So I think we get like these little like glimpses of what's actually possible for us to keep us going, to keep us, moving forward a little bit. And so, I love, one of my mentors used to say that action births clarity. And as long as you keep moving, you will start to find what your purpose is, because everything becomes more clear as you say yes to things. And it comes down to having faith too, and trust that, you are on the right path. If it feels good, you're most likely on the right path. And so all of this with the mediumship journey, yes, it's been confusing, it's been difficult, but it's always felt exciting. It's always felt like a lot of love. And so I just said yes to that, because I don't want to deny myself things that feel good anymore.
What would you say is your ultimate, I guess, goal with the mediumship? Like, and maybe you're in the process of still like kind of sorting that out, but like, or do you have like a goal in mind of like, this is ultimately what I want to do with the mediumship?
Well, that's a good question. Yes, I feel like that this is what I should be doing at this point in my life. What happens 10 years from now, I have no idea. It's kind of out of my control. But yes, why I like to do mediumship, maybe that's a better question for me to answer, is because I know the healing that it gives people, and I know the comfort it brings people. And I love seeing a client being mind blown, because I can bring through, not all the time, but a lot of times, really specific pieces of information and details about their loved one's life, and just helping them see like, oh, life is more than just what we can physically see. I think that's like the biggest kick I get out of it, that it helps people opening up their hearts and minds that life is so much more than what we're just experiencing in this very moment. There's so much to explore through the heart, through the mind, in the universe. Like that's ultimately why I love doing this stuff. But as far as, my goal being a medium, yes, I want to do a lot of readings for people, one-to-one readings, demonstrations. I'm perfectly fine with that, but also helping people to do that themselves too. and do, hosting workshops, hopefully traveling the world and hosting workshops and teaching people how to do this. And again, like, there are a lot of mediums out there, but you just want to find that person who you feel like the most comfortable with. And it's nothing wrong about like having multiple teachers. I have a plethora of teachers I've studied with over the years, and I'm very grateful for every single one of them. And hopefully I can be one of those teachers in someone's path on mediumship sometime in the future.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, jonnytorgersen.com. You just put that in the show notes, whatever. Same on Instagram and Facebook, Jonny Torgersen.
Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to put out there for people or share?
Yeah, so for people who want to learn mediumship and personal development, and me and my friend Michaela Whaley, who's another phenomenal medium, we're going to start hosting bi-weekly development circles online. So that will start in April. And so right now we're going to do them on Wednesdays. And so you can check that out on my Facebook, Instagram, and on my website. Then I'm also doing another personal development event working on the subconscious mind in San Diego for those people that are in the area. And we're doing that with a friend of mine. Her name is Spiritual Blacksmith. And we're doing that on April 26th, and it's going to be in San Diego. It's going to be about discovering your true self by clearing the subconscious mind. So it's going to be a little bit more about personal development. So I still do, hypnosis and personal development along with mediumship. So I have a whole thing on my website under the events page. You can find out that stuff.
Some of these are in person and some are online.
Yeah, development circles is going to be online on Zoom. And then the subconscious event is going to be in San Diego in person.
All right. Thank you very much. Jonny, thank you so much for joining us. We loved having you on, and maybe there can be a part 3 at some point. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you for listening to Vision Chat. You can find more about us at visionofprofoundhealing.com, where we offer readings, courses, and classes.